Marcus Thompson walked into the Data Flow Solutions office building every morning at exactly 8 a.m. He carried his black coffee in one hand and his worn leather bag in the other. The security guard always smiled and said good morning. Marcus would smile back and nod. He was not much of a talker, but people liked him anyway. The elevator ride to the 5th floor was always quiet. Marcus used this time to think about his day. He had learned to plan everything carefully. Time was very important to him, though nobody at work knew why. His desk was in the corner of the big office room. It was clean and organized. 2 computer screens sat side by side. A small plant that his coworker Sarah had given him sat near the window. On his desk, he kept only the things he needed for work. No personal photos or decorations. Marcus liked to keep his work life and personal life separate. Data Flow Solutions was a company that helped other businesses understand their sales numbers and customer information. Marcus worked as a senior data analyst. This meant he looked at lots of numbers and found patterns that helped companies make better decisions. He was very good at this job. Marcus had been working at Data Flow for 3 years. In that time, he had never been late, never called in sick, and never missed a deadline. His reports were always perfect. When other workers had questions about data or computer programs, they would come to Marcus. He always helped them with a patient smile. Marcus really knows his stuff, Tom from accounting would say. He can solve any problem with those spreadsheets. Sarah from human resources agreed. He's the most reliable person in this whole building. I wish we had 10 more people like him. But Marcus never talked much about himself. When coworkers asked about his weekend plans, he would just say he was busy. When they invited him to office parties or happy hour drinks, he would politely say no. Some people thought he was shy. Others thought he might be unfriendly. But those who worked closely with Marcus knew better. He was kind and helpful. He just kept to himself. Marcus was 32 years old. He was tall and thin, with short brown hair and glasses. He always wore simple clothes to work, a button-down shirt, dark pants, and comfortable shoes. He looked like any other office worker, which was exactly what he wanted. Every day, Marcus would arrive at his desk and immediately start working. He never wasted time checking social media or chatting by the coffee machine. He would open his computer and begin analyzing data. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Numbers and charts filled his screens. The work was complex, but Marcus made it look easy. He could spot mistakes that others missed. He could find trends in data that helped companies save money or increase sales. His boss, Derek Harrison, got credit for many of Marcus's discoveries. Derek would present Marcus's work to important clients and take all the praise. Marcus did not mind this. He was not looking for attention or fame. He just wanted to do good work and leave on time every day, and leaving on time was very important to Marcus, though he never explained why to anyone at the office. At exactly 5:30 p.m. every day, Marcus would save his work, turn off his computer, and pack his bag. Other workers often stayed until 6 or 7 p.m., especially when big projects were due. But Marcus always left at 5:30. He would say goodbye to anyone nearby and walk to the elevator. Some co-workers noticed this pattern. They started to talk about it during lunch breaks. Marcus must not care much about getting promoted, said Jennifer from marketing. Everyone knows Derek likes workers who stay late. Maybe he has another job, suggested Mike from sales. Some people work 2 jobs these days. Or maybe he just values his personal time, said Sarah, always ready to defend Marcus. There's nothing wrong with having good work-life balance. But the comments were starting to reach Derek Harrison's ears. Derek was the type of manager who believed that long hours meant hard work. He often stayed in the office until 8 or 9 p.m., and he expected his team to show the same dedication. Derek was 45 years old and had been with Data Flow for 8 years. He had worked his way up from a regular analyst to department head. He was proud of his success and believed it came from his willingness to work harder than everyone else. Derek had noticed Marcus's 5:30 departure time, but he had not said anything yet. Marcus's work was too good to complain about. Every report was accurate and on time. Every analysis was thorough and helpful. Derek knew that Marcus was one of his best employees, even if he did not like to admit it. The truth was that Derek felt threatened by Marcus. Marcus was smart, reliable, and well-liked by the other workers. He made difficult tasks look easy. Derek worried that upper management might notice Marcus and promote him. Derek had worked hard to get his position, and he did not want anyone taking his place. So Derek watched Marcus carefully. He looked for any mistake or sign of weakness. He wanted to find a reason to criticize Marcus, to show everyone that leaving at 5:30 p.m. meant Marcus was not really committed to the company. Marcus did not know about Derek's feelings. He focused on his work and tried to avoid office politics. He had more important things to worry about than what his boss thought of his schedule. Every morning, Marcus would check his phone for messages. Every afternoon, he would make quiet phone calls during his lunch break. These calls were always brief, and Marcus would speak in a low voice so others could not hear. After the calls, he would sometimes look worried or sad, but he would quickly return to work with his usual calm expression. The other workers respected Marcus, but they did not really know him. They saw him as the quiet guy who was good with numbers. They did not know about the heavy responsibility he carried every day. They did not know why he watched the clock so carefully, or why leaving at 5:30 was not a choice for him, but a necessity. Marcus had learned to live two separate lives. At work, he was the reliable data analyst who solved problems and helped his colleagues. After work, he became something entirely different. But nobody at Dataflow Solutions knew about his other life. And Marcus planned to keep it that way. The third quarter earnings report was not good news for Dataflow Solutions. The company had lost 3 major clients in the past 6 months. Sales were down 20% from the previous year. The executive team was not happy, and they wanted answers. Derek Harrison sat in the conference room listening to his boss, Patricia Wells, explain the situation. Patricia was the vice president of operations, and she was known for her direct approach to problems. "The numbers don't lie, Derek," Patricia said, pointing to the charts on her laptop screen. "Your department needs to find ways to bring in more business. We can't afford to lose any more clients." Derek nodded and tried to look confident, but inside he was worried. His job depended on his department's success. If things did not improve, soon he might be the next person to lose his job. "What's your plan?" Patricia asked. "We're going to work harder and smarter," Derek replied. "My team is very capable. We just need to focus more on results." After the meeting, Derek walked back to his department feeling stressed and angry. He looked around the office at his workers. Some were typing at their computers. Others were talking quietly about projects. To Derek, it looked like nobody was working hard enough. Derek had always believed that visible effort was the same as real effort. He thought that if people were not staying late or looking busy, they were not really working. This belief had helped him get promoted in the past, but it also made him a difficult boss. Over the next few days, Derek started watching his employees more closely. He would walk around the office and look over people's shoulders. He would ask questions about what they were working on. He started sending emails late at night and expected quick responses. Marcus noticed the change in Derek's behavior, but it did not affect his work routine. He continued to arrive at 8 a.m. and leave at 5:30 p.m. He continued to produce excellent work and help his coworkers when they needed it. But Derek was paying special attention to Marcus now. Every day at 5:30, Derek would watch Marcus pack his bag and leave. Derek would stay in the office for several more hours, working on presentations and planning meetings. The contrast bothered him more and more. How can Marcus just leave like that, Derek thought to himself. Doesn't he care about the company's problems? Doesn't he want to help find solutions? Derek started to build resentment toward Marcus. He began to see Marcus's punctual departure as a sign of laziness and lack of commitment. Derek forgot about all the high-quality work Marcus produced. He forgot about the problems Marcus had solved and the projects Marcus had completed ahead of schedule. Other employees in the department started to feel the pressure too. Derek was scheduling more meetings and demanding more reports. He was setting tighter deadlines and expecting people to work longer hours. "Derek is really stressed about something," Jennifer whispered to Tom during a coffee break. "He's been acting strange all week." "I heard we lost some big clients," Tom replied. Maybe. That's why he's being so demanding. Sarah from HR had noticed the change in office atmosphere too. She had worked at Dataflow for 5 years and had seen many changes in management style. But Derek's recent behavior was concerning. People are starting to complain, Sarah told her supervisor. Derek is putting a lot of pressure on his team. Some employees are talking about looking for other jobs. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his daily routine. He arrived on time, worked efficiently, and left at 5:30. But he was not blind to the tension in the office. He could see that Derek was unhappy about something. He could feel the stress that his coworkers were experiencing. Marcus had learned to be very observant. In his personal life, he had to notice small changes and react quickly to problems. This skill helped him at work too. He could tell when projects were going off track before anyone else noticed. He could spot errors in data that others missed. But Marcus chose not to get involved in office drama. He had enough stress in his personal life. He could not afford to take on workplace conflicts too, so he kept his head down and focused on his tasks. Derek's frustration grew stronger each day. He started to take Marcus's behavior personally. When other employees stayed late to work on urgent projects, Derek would notice that Marcus's desk was empty. When weekend work was needed, Derek would see that Marcus was not volunteering to come in. Marcus thinks he's too good for extra work, Derek complained to his wife one evening. He acts like he's above the team effort. Derek's wife tried to be supportive, but she also tried to be reasonable. Maybe he has family obligations, she suggested. Not everyone can work long hours. That's no excuse, Derek replied. If you want to succeed in business, you have to make sacrifices. You have to show dedication. Derek had forgotten what it was like to have responsibilities outside of work. He had no children and few family obligations. His wife had her own successful career and did not need him to be home at a certain time. Derek's life was built around his job, and he expected everyone else to have the same priorities. As the weeks passed, Derek's attention on Marcus became almost like an obsession. He would time Marcus's lunch breaks to make sure they were not too long. He would check Marcus's computer activity to see if he was wasting time. He would listen to Marcus's phone conversations to see if they were personal calls. But Marcus was careful about all these things. His lunch breaks were exactly 30 minutes. He never used his work computer for personal business. His phone calls were brief and professional. Derek could not find any real evidence of poor performance. This made Derek even more frustrated. He wanted to find a reason to criticize Marcus, but Marcus gave him no openings. Every report was perfect. Every deadline was met. Every project was completed with high quality. The other employees began to notice Derek's special attention on Marcus. They could see Derek watching Marcus more closely than anyone else. Some felt sorry for Marcus. Others worried that they might be next. Derek seems to have it out for Marcus, Mike whispered to Jennifer. I don't understand why. Marcus is one of our best workers. Maybe Derek feels threatened, Jennifer replied. Marcus is really good at his job, and everyone respects him. Marcus was aware of Derek's increased attention, but he tried not to let it affect his work. He had dealt with difficult people before. He knew that the best strategy was to stay professional and avoid confrontation. But inside, Marcus was getting worried. He needed this job. He could not afford to lose his income or his health insurance. His personal responsibilities required both financial stability and predictable work hours. If Derek decided to fire him, it would create serious problems in other areas of his life. Marcus started to consider his options. He could try to talk to Derek and explain his situation, but that would mean sharing personal information that he preferred to keep private. He could complain to HR, but that might make Derek even more angry. He could look for another job, but that would take time and energy that he did not have. For now, Marcus decided to continue his current approach. He would do excellent work and hope that Derek's mood would improve. He would be polite and professional in all his interactions. He would give Derek no reason to complain about his performance. But Marcus also started to prepare for the worst. He updated his resume and saved important contact information. He began to think about how he would handle a job search if it became necessary. He hoped it would not come to that, but Marcus had learned to always have a backup plan. The Pinnacle Industries project was the biggest opportunity Data Flow Solutions had seen all year. If they could win this contract, it would make up for all the clients they had lost in recent months. The project required analyzing 5 years of sales data and creating a complete business strategy report. The deadline was tight. Everything had to be finished in 2 weeks. Derek called an emergency team meeting on a Monday morning. All 12 members of his department gathered in the small conference room. Derek stood at the front with his laptop connected to the projector. "This is our chance to turn things around," Derek announced. "Pinnacle Industries is considering 3 different companies for this project. We need to show them that we're the best choice." He clicked through slides showing the project requirements. The work was complex and would require everyone's expertise. Marcus listened carefully and took notes. He could already see how to organize the data analysis and what approaches would work best. "I need everyone to give 100% on this project," Derek continued. "That means long hours, weekend work, and complete dedication. No excuses, no exceptions." Derek's eyes moved around the room, stopping on each team member. When he looked at Marcus, his expression became stern. "I expect everyone to be here early and stay late. This project is more important than any personal plans you might have. Anyone who can't commit fully should speak up now." Nobody said anything. The room was quiet except for the sound of air conditioning. Everyone understood that their jobs might depend on winning this contract. After the meeting, the team started working immediately. Marcus dove into the data files that Pinnacle Industries had provided. The information was messy and would need careful cleaning before analysis could begin. This was exactly the kind of work Marcus did best. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. Marcus worked efficiently and made good progress on his portions of the project. He organized the data, found patterns, and created preliminary reports. His work was helping the whole team stay on schedule. But Derek was not satisfied with just good progress. He wanted to see obvious signs of extra effort. He wanted people to look tired and stressed. He wanted to see pizza boxes from late-night work sessions and coffee cups from early morning starts. On Wednesday, Derek sent an email to the entire team. "I need everyone to understand that this project requires sacrifice. I will be here every night until 9 p.m. and every weekend day. I expect the same commitment from all of you." Marcus read the email during his lunch break. He felt his stomach tighten with worry. Working late nights and weekends would create serious problems for him. He had commitments that could not be changed or postponed, but he also knew that Derek was watching him more closely than anyone else. That afternoon, Marcus worked as efficiently as possible. He wanted to get as much done as he could during regular hours. Maybe if he stayed ahead of schedule, Derek would not insist that he work overtime. At 5:15 p.m., Marcus was finishing up a complex data analysis when Derek appeared at his desk. "Still planning to leave at 5:30? Derek asked. His tone was casual, but Marcus could hear the criticism underneath. "I'll finish this section first," Marcus replied, continuing to type. "I should have the preliminary results ready by tomorrow morning." "That's not what I asked," Derek said, his voice getting sharper. "I asked if you're planning to leave at your usual time." Marcus stopped typing and looked up at Derek. Other workers nearby pretended to focus on their screens, but Marcus could tell they were listening. "I need to leave on time today," Marcus said carefully, "but I'll make sure all my deadlines are met." Derek's face turned red. "Marcus, I don't think you understand the situation. This project could save our department. It could save our jobs. And you're worried about leaving on time?" "I understand the importance of the project," Marcus replied. "That's why I've been working so efficiently. I'm ahead of schedule on my assignments." "Being ahead of schedule doesn't matter if you're not showing team spirit," Derek snapped. "Everyone else is willing to make sacrifices. Why aren't you?" Marcus felt trapped. He could not explain his situation without revealing personal information. But Derek was clearly expecting an answer. "I have important commitments after work," Marcus said finally. "But I promise my work quality won't suffer." Derek laughed, but it was not a friendly sound. "Important commitments? More important than your job? More important than your team?" The conversation was getting louder. More people were starting to look over. Marcus felt embarrassed and frustrated, but he tried to stay calm. I'm committed to doing excellent work, Marcus said. I've never missed a deadline or delivered poor quality results. Your work is fine, Derek admitted. But this isn't just about work quality. It's about attitude. It's about being part of the team. Derek paused and looked around the office. He seemed to realize that everyone was watching, but instead of lowering his voice, he spoke even louder. I need people who are willing to go above and beyond, Derek announced. I need people who care more about success than about their personal convenience. Marcus felt his face getting hot. He had always been a private person, but Derek was forcing him into a public confrontation. I do care about success, Marcus said quietly. I just have responsibilities that require me to keep a regular schedule. What responsibilities could be more important than your career? Derek demanded. What's so urgent that you can't stay late for 2 weeks? Marcus looked around the office. Everyone was staring now. Sarah from HR looked concerned. Tom from accounting looked uncomfortable. Even Jennifer from marketing had stopped pretending to work. Marcus knew he had to make a choice. He could explain his situation and hope Derek would understand. Or he could continue to protect his privacy and hope this conflict would pass. I prefer not to discuss my personal life at work, Marcus said finally. Derek's expression became even angrier. Your personal life is affecting your professional life. That makes it my business. I don't think that's fair, Marcus replied. My work performance speaks for itself. Your work performance is only part of the equation, Derek shot back. Team cooperation is just as important. And right now, you're not being a team player. The argument was escalating quickly. Marcus could see that Derek was beyond reason. Nothing Marcus said would satisfy him. Derek had already decided that Marcus was a problem employee. I'll do everything I can to help the team succeed, Marcus said, trying one last time to calm the situation. But I can't change my after-work schedule. Derek stared at Marcus for a long moment. The office was completely quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Fine, Derek said finally. But don't think this conversation is over. If this project fails because people weren't willing to make sacrifices, there will be consequences. Derek walked away, leaving Marcus sitting at his desk with everyone still watching. Marcus tried to return to his work, but his hands were shaking slightly. He had never been confronted so aggressively at work before. Sarah from HR walked over to Marcus's desk a few minutes later. Are you okay? She asked quietly. I'm fine, Marcus replied, though he did not feel fine at all. If you need to talk to someone about this situation, you know where to find me, Sarah offered. Marcus nodded and thanked her. But he knew that talking to HR might make things worse with Derek. He would have to find another way to handle this problem. At exactly 5:30 p.m., Marcus packed his bag and left the office. He could feel Derek's eyes on him as he walked to the elevator. He could sense the tension and whispers from his co-workers. As the elevator doors closed, Marcus realized that his situation at Dataflow Solutions had changed dramatically. Derek was no longer just watching him critically. Derek now saw him as an enemy. And Marcus had no idea how much worse things might get. Monday morning arrived with gray clouds and the promise of rain. Marcus walked into the Dataflow Solutions building as he had done every workday for 3 years. But something felt different. The security guard's greeting seemed less warm. The tight elevator ride felt longer than usual. The weekend had not gone well for Derek Harrison. He had spent Saturday and Sunday at the office working on the Pinnacle Industries presentation. But the more he worked, the more frustrated he became. He kept thinking about Marcus leaving at 5:30 every day while everyone else stayed late. Derek had convinced himself that Marcus was the reason for all the department's problems. If Marcus would just show more commitment, maybe the whole team would work harder. If Marcus would sacrifice his personal time like everyone else, maybe they would win more clients. When Derek arrived at work that Monday, he was already angry. He had barely slept, and he had drunk too much coffee. He was looking for a fight, and he had already decided who his target would be. At 9 a.m., Derek called a mandatory team meeting. All 12 department members gathered in the main conference room. This was the largest meeting room with a big table and chairs for 20 people. Derek liked to use this room when he wanted to make important announcements. Marcus took his usual seat near the back of the room. He had his notebook and pen ready, expecting to receive updates about the Pinnacle Industries project. The weekend had given him time to think about his confrontation with Derek, and he hoped things would be calmer today. Other team members filled the remaining chairs. Sarah from HR sat near the door. Tom from accounting chose a seat in the middle. Jennifer from marketing sat across from Marcus. Everyone looked tired from the intense work pace of the past week. Derek stood at the front of the room with his arms crossed. He did not have any presentation materials or handouts. This was not going to be a normal project meeting. "I want to talk about commitment," Derek began. His voice was loud and stern. "I want to talk about what it means to be part of a team." The room was completely quiet. People shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He had a bad feeling about where this meeting was heading. "Some people in this department think they can coast by doing the minimum," Derek continued. "Some people think they can leave at 5:30 every day while their teammates work late into the night." Derek's eyes moved around the room, but Marcus could tell the words were directed at him. Other people were starting to figure it out too. A few team members glanced in Marcus's direction. "I've been watching, and I've been taking notes," Derek said. "I know who's really committed to our success and who's just collecting a paycheck." Marcus wanted to speak up and defend himself, but he knew that would only make things worse. Derek was clearly planning something, and Marcus did not want to give him any additional ammunition. "The Pinnacle Industries project is the most important thing this department has worked on all year," Derek continued. "It could determine whether we all still have jobs next month, but some people don't seem to care about that." Derek paused and looked directly at Marcus. Everyone in the room followed his gaze. Marcus felt like he was under a spotlight. His face began to feel hot with embarrassment. "Marcus Thompson," Derek said loudly, "stand up." Marcus hesitated for a moment. He could not believe Derek was singling him out in front of the entire team, but he had no choice except to comply. He slowly stood up from his chair. "Tell everyone what time you left work on Friday," Derek demanded. "I left at 5:30, Marcus replied quietly. "Speak up so everyone can hear you," Derek ordered. "I left at 5:30, Marcus repeated, louder this time. "That's right, 5:30. While everyone else was here working until 8 or 9 p.m., you packed up your little bag and went home." The room was so quiet that Marcus could hear the air conditioning system running. Nobody moved or spoke. Everyone was staring at him with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. "And what about Saturday?" Derek continued. "Did you come in to help your team?" "No," Marcus admitted. "No, you didn't." "And Sunday?" "No." Derek smiled, but it was a cruel smile. "So while your teammates were here sacrificing their weekends for the company, you were doing whatever it is you do in your personal time." Marcus wanted to explain that he had good reasons for his schedule. He wanted to tell Derek about the important commitments that required his attention every evening and weekend, but he could not do it in front of all these people. His personal life was private, and he intended to keep it that way. "I complete all my assigned work on time and with high quality," Marcus said, trying to defend himself without revealing personal information. Derek laughed. "Your assigned work. That's exactly the problem. You do your assigned work and nothing more. You have no initiative, no drive, no team spirit." Derek began pacing back and forth at the front of the room. He was building up to something bigger, and Marcus could sense it coming. "In a successful department, everyone pulls together," Derek announced. "Everyone makes sacrifices. Everyone goes above and beyond what's merely assigned to them." Derek stopped pacing and pointed directly at Marcus. "But we have dead weight in this department. We have people who think they're too good to work hard, people who think they can succeed without making any effort." Marcus felt like he had been punched in the stomach. The accusation was completely unfair, but he could not defend himself without explaining his personal situation. "That attitude is toxic," Derek continued. "It spreads to other people. It makes everyone think they can get away with doing less." Sarah from HR looked very uncomfortable. She seemed like she wanted to say something, but she stayed quiet. Tom from accounting was staring at his hands. Jennifer from marketing looked shocked by Derek's aggressive behavior. "I've been patient with this situation," Derek said. "I've hoped things would improve. But it's clear that some people will never change." Derek walked closer to Marcus's chair. Marcus was still standing, feeling exposed and humiliated in front of his colleagues. "Marcus Thompson, you're fired," Derek announced loudly. "Effective immediately. Pack your things and leave the building." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He could not believe what he was hearing. After 3 years of excellent work, after never missing a deadline or producing poor results, he was being fired in front of everyone. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm completely serious," Derek replied. "This department needs people who are committed to excellence. You're clearly not one of those people." Marcus looked around the room at his coworkers. Some looked shocked, others looked sad. A few seemed angry at Derek's behavior. But nobody spoke up to defend Marcus. "I need this job," Marcus said, trying one last time to reason with Derek. "You should have thought about that before you decided to coast," Derek shot back. "You should have thought about that every time you left at 5:30 while your teammates worked late." Marcus realized there was no point in continuing the argument. Derek had made up his mind and nothing Marcus said would change it. He had been humiliated in front of his entire team, and now he was being thrown out of the building. "Go clean out your desk," Derek ordered. "Security will escort you out." Marcus walked out of the conference room in a daze. Behind him, he could hear Derek addressing the remaining team members. "Let this be a lesson to everyone," Derek was saying. "I will not tolerate laziness or lack of commitment. We're all going to work harder and smarter starting today." Marcus walked to his desk and began putting his few personal items into a cardboard box that someone had brought for him. The small plant from Sarah. A coffee mug he had brought from home. A few papers with important phone numbers. His co-workers watched from a distance. Nobody came over to say goodbye. They were all too shocked by what had just happened. They were all worried that they might be next if they showed any sympathy for Marcus. The security guard appeared at Marcus's desk with an awkward expression. Marcus had always been polite to the security staff, and this guard clearly did not. "Enjoy his current assignment. Ready to go?" the guard asked quietly. Marcus nodded and picked up his box. He took one last look around the office where he had worked for 3 years. Then he walked to the elevator with the security guard beside him. As the elevator doors closed, Marcus caught a glimpse of Derek standing in his office doorway. Derek was watching with satisfaction like he had just solved a major problem. But Derek had no idea what he had really done. He had no idea about the lives that Marcus touched every day after work. He had no idea about the commitments that made Marcus's 5:30 departure time absolutely necessary. Derek thought he had gotten rid of a lazy employee. In reality, he had just made the biggest mistake of his career. The silence in the conference room lasted for several minutes after Marcus left. Nobody knew what to say or do. Derek had returned to his office, leaving the team to process what had just happened. Finally, people began to gather their things and return to their desks. Sarah from HR was the first to speak. She walked over to Tom from accounting and whispered, "I can't believe what just happened. That was completely inappropriate." Tom nodded and looked around to make sure Derek could not hear them. "I've never seen anything like that before. Firing someone in front of the whole team? That's not how you handle personnel issues." Jennifer from marketing joined their quiet conversation. Poor Marcus. He must be devastated. 3 years of good work and Derek just threw him out like garbage. "The worst part is that Marcus was one of our best employees," Sarah said. "His work was always perfect. He helped everyone who asked. I don't understand why Derek had such a problem with him." Other team members were having similar conversations around the office. Everyone was shocked by Derek's aggressive behavior and his decision to fire Marcus publicly. But they were also worried about their own jobs. If Derek could fire Marcus for leaving on time, what might he do to them? Mike from sales gathered with a few other co-workers near the coffee machine. "We need to be careful," he said quietly. "Derek is obviously under a lot of pressure about this pinnacle project. He might fire anyone who gives him an excuse." But Marcus didn't give him an excuse, replied Janet from customer service. Marcus was a model employee. If Derek can fire him, he can fire any of us. The conversations continued throughout the day, but people were careful to keep their voices low. Nobody wanted Derek to overhear them discussing Marcus's firing. The office atmosphere was tense and uncomfortable. Derek stayed in his office for most of the day, working on project materials and avoiding his team. He told himself that firing Marcus was the right decision. Marcus had been a bad influence on the department's work ethic. Now that he was gone, everyone else would work harder. But Derek's plan was not working the way he expected. Instead of motivating the team, Marcus's firing had created fear and resentment. People were worried and distracted. They were spending more time whispering about the situation than focusing on their work. By Tuesday, the whispers had grown louder. People were starting to share stories about Marcus that Derek had never heard before. Tom from accounting mentioned that Marcus had helped him learn a new computer program on his own time. Jennifer from marketing remembered that Marcus had volunteered to work on a difficult project that nobody else wanted to handle. Marcus was always willing to help, said Janet from customer service. Whenever I had questions about data analysis, he would patiently explain everything to me. He never made me feel stupid for not understanding. Sarah from HR was hearing more and more positive stories about Marcus. She began to feel guilty for not speaking up during the meeting. As the HR representative, she should have said something about Derek's inappropriate behavior. I should have stopped that meeting, Sarah told her supervisor on Tuesday afternoon. What Derek did was wrong on so many levels. You don't fire someone in front of their coworkers. You don't humiliate people like that. Her supervisor agreed that Derek's actions were problematic. We might have legal issues because of how he handled this, the supervisor warned. Public humiliation could be considered hostile work environment behavior. Meanwhile, people were starting to ask questions about Marcus's personal life. During his 3 years at the company, Marcus had been very private. He never talked about his family or his activities outside of work. But now that he was gone, people were curious about what had made him so secretive. I always wondered why Marcus was so careful about his schedule, said Mike from sales. He was really strict about leaving at 5:30. It wasn't like he was lazy or didn't care about work. It was more like he had some kind of appointment he couldn't miss. Jennifer from marketing remembered something else. I saw Marcus making phone calls during lunch sometimes. He would go outside to the parking lot and talk quietly. I thought, maybe he was dealing with personal business, but he always looked worried afterward. Tom from accounting had noticed Marcus's emergency contact forms when he helped with some paperwork earlier in the year. His emergency contact wasn't a spouse or parent, Tom said. It was some kind of care facility. I remember thinking that was unusual. These small pieces of information started to create a picture of Marcus that nobody had seen before. He was not just the quiet data analyst who kept to himself. He clearly had important responsibilities outside of work that required his attention. Sarah from HR decided to investigate further. She pulled Marcus's personnel file and looked through his employment information. Most of it was standard: job application, references, performance reviews. But there were a few details that caught her attention. Marcus had listed excellent references from his previous job, but he had left that position very suddenly. His former supervisor had written a glowing recommendation letter that mentioned Marcus's dedication to family responsibilities and his ability to balance professional excellence with personal commitments. Sarah also noticed that Marcus had never taken vacation days for personal trips or leisure activities. When he requested time off, it was always for single days, and he usually marked the reason as family obligation or personal appointment. It's like he was managing some kind of ongoing situation, Sarah thought to herself. Something that required regular attention and a predictable schedule. The more Sarah learned, the more she regretted not defending Marcus during the meeting. She began to suspect that Derek had fired a good employee for all the wrong reasons. On Wednesday, the team received more bad news. The Pinnacle Industries project was not going well without Marcus's contribution. He had been working on critical data analysis that nobody else fully understood. His departure had left gaps in the project that were difficult to fill. Derek tried to reassign Marcus's work to other team members, but they struggled to match his expertise and efficiency. The project timeline was slipping, and the quality of the analysis was not meeting Pinnacle's expectations. "We need to hire someone to replace Marcus immediately," Tom warned Derek. "The financial modeling section is beyond my skill level." Marcus was the only one who really understood how to work with this type of complex data. Derek was frustrated to admit that losing Marcus was causing real problems. He had expected the team to rally together and work harder after the firing. Instead, they seemed demoralized and less productive than before. By Thursday, even Derek's supervisor, Patricia Wells, was hearing rumors about the situation. Several employees had mentioned Marcus's firing in casual conversations. The story was spreading beyond the immediate department. "I heard you had to let someone go," Patricia said to Derek during a brief meeting. "What happened?" Derek tried to explain his decision in the best possible light. Marcus Thompson was not showing appropriate commitment to the team effort. He was affecting department morale with his attitude. Patricia had worked with Derek for several years, and she knew he could be impatient with employees who did not match his work style. But she also knew that firing decisions required proper documentation and HR approval. "Did you follow proper procedures?" Patricia asked. "Did you work with HR to document performance issues?" Derek realized he might have made a procedural error. In his anger and frustration, he had acted impulsively. He had not created a paper trail of performance problems. He had not given Marcus any written warnings or chances to improve. The situation required immediate action, Derek said defensively. Marcus was undermining the department's success, but Patricia was not convinced. She made a mental note to follow up with HR about the details of Marcus's termination. By Friday, exactly 1 week after Marcus's firing, the office atmosphere was still tense and uncomfortable. People were working on the Pinnacle project, but their hearts were not in it. They missed Marcus's expertise and his calm, helpful presence. Sarah from HR had been thinking about Marcus all week. She kept remembering small details about his behavior that now seemed significant. His careful attention to time, his quiet phone calls, his reluctance to discuss personal matters. "I think Marcus was dealing with something important," Sarah told Jennifer during their lunch break. "Something that required him to keep a very regular schedule. Maybe he was taking care of someone who needed him." Jennifer agreed. "That would explain why he was so private about it. Some people don't like to talk about family problems at work. And it would explain why Derek's demands were so unfair," Sarah added. "If Marcus had caregiving responsibilities, he couldn't just stay late whenever Derek wanted him to." The two women sat quietly for a moment, thinking about the situation. They both felt bad about not speaking up for Marcus when he needed support. "I wish there was something we could do," Jennifer said finally. "Maybe there is," Sarah replied. "Maybe it's not too late to find out the truth about Marcus and what Derek really did to him." Neither of them knew that the truth was about to reveal itself in ways they could never have imagined. Thursday morning started like any other day for Derek Harrison. He arrived at the office early, bought his usual coffee from the lobby cafe, and settled into his desk to review project reports. The Pinnacle Industries presentation was scheduled for the following week, and Derek was feeling confident despite the challenges of the past few days. The team had been working hard to fill the gaps left by Marcus's departure. It was taking longer than expected, and the quality was not quite the same, but Derek believed they would deliver a successful presentation. He had convinced himself that firing Marcus was the right decision, even if it had created some temporary difficulties. At 10:15 a.m., Derek's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number with a local area code. Derek almost ignored the call, but something made him pick up the phone. "Derek Harrison speaking," he answered in his professional voice. "Hello, Mr. Harrison, this is Maria Santos from St. Mary's Children's Hospital. I'm trying to reach Marcus Thompson, but his work number seems to be disconnected. Is this still his current workplace?" Derek felt his stomach drop. Why would a children's hospital be calling Marcus at work? And why did they have Derek's direct number? "Marcus no longer works here," Derek said carefully. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "Oh no," Maria replied, sounding genuinely distressed. That explains why he hasn't been here this week. The children have been asking about him every day. Derek's confusion was growing. I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Why would children at a hospital be asking about Marcus? Mr. Marcus has been volunteering here every evening for almost 2 years, Maria explained. He helps the children with their homework and reads stories to the younger patients. He's become very important to many of our kids. Derek sat down heavily in his chair. This information did not fit with his image of Marcus as an uncommitted employee who just wanted to leave work early. He volunteers every evening? Derek asked. Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m., Maria confirmed. He's never missed a session without calling ahead. That's why we're so worried. He just disappeared on Monday and nobody has seen him since. Derek's mind was racing. If Marcus volunteered at the hospital from 6 to 8 p.m. every evening, that meant he needed to leave work by 5:30 to get there on time. His punctual departure was not about laziness or lack of commitment. It was about keeping promises to sick children. Can you tell me more about his volunteer work? Derek asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Mr. Marcus is wonderful with the children, Maria said warmly. He started coming here when his neighbor's daughter was a patient. After she recovered, he kept volunteering. The kids call him Mr. Marcus the math man because he's so good at helping with homework. Derek felt sick to his stomach. He had fired Marcus for leaving at 5:30 p.m., not knowing that Marcus was rushing to help children in the hospital. He also reads to the younger children who can't sleep, Maria continued. Some of our patients don't get many visitors, so Mr. Marcus has become like family to them. Little Tommy in room 304 asks for him every night. I had no idea, Derek said quietly. Mr. Marcus is very modest about his volunteer work, Maria explained. He never talks about himself. He just focuses on helping the children. We've tried to give him recognition awards, but he always declines. Derek remembered his confrontation with Marcus about his important commitments after work. Marcus had refused to explain what those commitments were, even when Derek demanded answers. Now Derek understood why. Marcus was protecting the privacy of sick children and their families. Is there any way you can help us contact him? Maria asked. We have his home address, but nobody answers when we call or visit. The children are really missing him, especially the ones who depend on his homework help. Derek realized that Marcus might not be answering his phone or door because he was job hunting or dealing with the stress of being fired. Derek's actions had not only hurt Marcus, but also affected sick children who depended on him. I'll try to find a way to contact him, Derek promised, though he had no idea how he would do that. After hanging up, Derek sat in his office for a long time. The phone call had completely changed his understanding of Marcus and his behavior. Every assumption Derek had made was wrong. Derek remembered his angry words during the team meeting. Some people think they can leave at 5:30 every day while their teammates work late into the night. Now he knew that Marcus was not going home to relax. He was going to help children who needed him. Derek also remembered accusing Marcus of having no team spirit and no drive. But volunteering at a children's hospital for 2 years showed more team spirit and drive than Derek had ever displayed. The worst part was that Derek had fired Marcus publicly, humiliating him in front of the entire team. Derek had destroyed the reputation of a man who spent his free time helping sick children. Derek tried to focus on his work, but he could not stop thinking about the phone call. He kept imagining children asking for Mr. Marcus and being told that he was not coming back. The image made Derek feel terrible about what he had done. Around lunchtime, Derek's phone rang again. This time the caller was Dr. Jennifer Walsh from Sunset Manor Nursing Home. I'm looking for Marcus Thompson, Dr. Walsh said. We have him listed as the primary contact for Eleanor Thompson, one of our residents. We've been trying to reach him about his mother's care plan, but we can't get through. Derek's heart sank even further. Marcus's mother was in a nursing home and Marcus was her primary contact. That probably meant he visited her regularly, which would explain even more about his strict schedule. Marcus no longer works here, Derek said, his voice barely above a whisper. That's strange, Dr. Walsh replied. He visits his mother every evening at 8:30 p.m. He's been completely reliable for the 3 years she's been with us. We're concerned because he hasn't been here this week." Derek was learning that Marcus's evening schedule was even more complicated than he had imagined. First the hospital from 6 to 8 p.m., then the nursing home at 8:30 p.m. Marcus had been balancing his work responsibilities with volunteer work and caring for his mother. "His mother has dementia," Dr. Walsh continued. "She gets very agitated if Marcus doesn't visit when she expects him. We've had to give her medication to keep her calm this week." Derek realized that his decision to fire Marcus had affected not only sick children but also an elderly woman with dementia who depended on her son's daily visits. "Can you help us reach him?" Dr. Walsh asked. "We're worried about both Marcus and his mother." Derek promised to try, but he still had no way to contact Marcus. He had destroyed Marcus's life and hurt innocent people, and he did not even have a way to apologize. After the second phone call, Derek could not concentrate on anything. He kept thinking about Marcus rushing from work to the hospital, then to the nursing home, then probably home to prepare for the next day. No wonder Marcus had been so careful about his schedule. He had people depending on him. Derek also began to understand why Marcus had been so private about his personal life. He was dealing with his mother's illness and volunteering with sick children. These were not topics that Marcus would want to discuss casually at work. The Pinnacle Industries project suddenly seemed much less important than it had that morning. Derek had been obsessed with work schedules and overtime, while Marcus had been quietly balancing professional excellence with extraordinary personal commitments. Derek thought about calling Patricia Wells to explain the situation, but he was too ashamed. He thought about calling HR to see if they could help him contact Marcus, but he was afraid of the legal consequences of his actions. For the first time since Monday, Derek began to understand the full scope of his mistake. He had not just fired an employee for poor performance. He had destroyed the life of a man who was helping sick children and caring for his elderly mother. Derek had been so focused on appearances and office politics that he had completely missed what really mattered. He had valued the wrong things and punished someone for doing the right things. As the afternoon wore on, Derek felt worse and worse about his actions. He had always thought of himself as a good manager and a decent person, but now he was forced to confront the truth about what he had done. Derek had ruined the life of one of the best people he had ever known, and he had no idea how to fix it. Derek could not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Maria Santos asking about the children who missed Mr. Marcus. He thought about Dr. Walsh explaining how Marcus's mother was getting agitated without her daily visits. Derek had always prided himself on being a good judge of character, but he had been completely wrong about Marcus. Friday morning, Derek arrived at work early, but he could not focus on the Pinnacle Industries project. Instead, he found himself searching the internet for information about Marcus Thompson. He felt like a detective trying to solve a mystery, except the mystery was understanding the true character of the man he had fired. Derek started with social media, but Marcus had almost no online presence. There were no Facebook posts about his volunteer work or family photos. Marcus had kept his private life completely separate from any public records. Then Derek remembered that Marcus had worked at another company before joining Dataflow Solutions. Derek called Marcus's former supervisor, Linda Chen, at Brightstar Analytics. "Marcus Thompson?" Linda said when Derek identified himself. "He was one of the best employees I ever managed. Is he applying for a position with your company?" Derek realized he would have to explain the situation carefully. "Actually, Marcus worked for us for 3 years. I'm calling because I'm trying to understand more about his background." "Marcus is wonderful," Linda said enthusiastically. "Brilliant with data analysis, but also incredibly dedicated to his family responsibilities. He was very upfront during his interview about needing to maintain a regular schedule because of caregiving duties." Derek felt another wave of guilt. Marcus had been honest with his previous employer about his personal commitments, and they had valued him for his integrity. "Can you tell me more about his caregiving duties?" Derek asked. "His mother was diagnosed with early-stage dementia while he worked here," Linda explained. "Marcus was very private about it, but I could tell he was struggling to balance work with getting her the care she needed." When he found a good nursing facility, he had to visit every evening to help with her routine. Linda paused, then continued. Marcus also started volunteering at the children's hospital around that time. I think his neighbor's child was a patient there. Marcus never talked much about it, but I heard from other people that he was spending several hours a week helping kids with homework and reading. Derek was learning that Marcus's volunteer work and caregiving responsibilities went back much further than he had realized. These were not recent developments. Marcus had been managing these commitments for years while maintaining excellent work performance. Why did he leave your company? Derek asked. He didn't want to leave, Linda said sadly. But we were acquired by a larger firm, and the new management required all employees to work mandatory overtime and weekend hours. Marcus explained his situation and asked for accommodation, but the new bosses wouldn't budge. Derek realized that Marcus had left his previous job for the same reason Derek had fired him. Companies that demanded inflexible work schedules could not accommodate Marcus's important personal commitments. I gave Marcus the strongest recommendation letter I've ever written, Linda added. I hope your company appreciated what a special employee you had. Derek felt sick. Yes, we certainly learned a lot about Marcus, he said vaguely before ending the call. Derek spent the rest of Friday making more calls and doing more research. He discovered that Marcus had been volunteering with a weekend program for at-risk youth in addition to his hospital work. He found out that Marcus had been quietly donating money to the company's employee hardship fund for 2 years. Each new piece of information made Derek feel worse about his actions. Marcus was not just a good employee who had been unfairly fired. He was an exceptional person who had been destroyed by Derek's ignorance and prejudice. On Monday morning, exactly 1 week after firing Marcus, Derek made a decision. He had to try to make things right, even if it was too late to undo the damage he had caused. Derek started by calling information services to get Marcus's home phone number. When he dialed the number, it went straight to voicemail. Derek left a message asking Marcus to call him back, but he did not expect a response. Next, Derek drove to the address listed in Marcus's personnel file. It was a modest apartment complex in a quiet neighborhood. Derek knocked on Marcus's door for several minutes, but nobody answered. Either Marcus was not home, or he was avoiding visitors. Derek's next stop was St. Mary's Children's Hospital. He asked to speak with Maria Santos, the nurse who had called him on Thursday. I'm trying to find Marcus Thompson, Derek explained when he met Maria. I need to talk to him about his job situation. Maria looked hopeful. Does this mean he might come back to volunteer? The children have been so sad without him. Derek hesitated. He was not sure he could fix Marcus's job situation, but he wanted to understand more about Marcus's impact on the hospital. Can you show me where Marcus volunteered? Derek asked. Maria led Derek through the hospital corridors to the pediatric wing. The walls were decorated with colorful artwork and motivational posters. They passed several rooms where children were receiving treatment or resting in bed. This is our homework help room, Maria said, opening the door to a small space with tables, chairs, and bookshelves. Mr. Marcus worked with children here every evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Derek looked around the room and tried to imagine Marcus patiently helping children with math problems or reading assignments. The image was completely different from his previous perception of Marcus as an uncommitted employee. He was especially good with the teenagers, Maria continued. Some of our older patients get frustrated with missing school, but Mr. Marcus could explain difficult concepts in ways they could understand. Maria walked Derek to another area near the younger children's rooms. Mr. Marcus also did story time here. He would read to children who were having trouble sleeping or who felt scared about their treatments. Derek saw a comfortable chair surrounded by children's books. On a nearby wall, there were thank you cards and drawings that patients had made. Several of them were addressed to Mr. Marcus. The children made these for him, Maria explained. He always acted embarrassed when they gave him gifts, but you could tell he was touched by their appreciation. Derek picked up one of the drawings. It showed a stick figure man reading a book to a small child in a hospital bed. At the bottom, someone had written, "Thank you, Mr. Marcus, for helping me not be scared." Derek felt tears starting to form in his eyes. He had fired a man who helped frightened children feel less scared. He had humiliated someone who gave sick kids hope and comfort. Mr. Marcus never wanted any recognition, Maria said. We tried to give him volunteer appreciation awards, but he always said the children's smiles were reward enough. Derek spent another hour at the hospital, learning more about Marcus's volunteer work. He discovered that Marcus had helped several children improve their grades enough to avoid being held back in school. He learned that Marcus had organized a small library of books for teenage patients who were bored during long treatments. Derek's final stop was Sunset Manor Nursing Home, where he met with Dr. Jennifer Walsh about Marcus's mother. Eleanor Thompson is 82 years old and has moderate dementia, Dr. Walsh explained as they walked toward her room. She has good days and bad days, but she always remembers when Marcus is supposed to visit. Dr. Walsh showed Derek to a common area where several elderly residents were sitting in comfortable chairs. Eleanor Thompson was a small woman with gray hair and a confused expression. "Eleanor, you have a visitor," Dr. Walsh said gently. Eleanor looked up at Derek with hopeful eyes. "Are you Marcus? Are you my son?" Derek felt his heart break. "No, I'm Derek. I work with Marcus." Eleanor's face fell. "Where is Marcus? He comes to see me every day. Did something happen to him?" Derek did not know how to answer. He could not tell this confused elderly woman that he had fired her son for trying to visit her every evening. "We're trying to find Marcus," Derek said, carefully. "We want to make sure he's okay." "Marcus is a good boy," Eleanor said proudly. "He takes care of me. He reads to me from my favorite books. Sometimes I forget things, but I never forget that Marcus loves me." Dr. Walsh led Derek away from Eleanor and spoke quietly. "Marcus visits every evening at 8:30. He helps with her dinner, reads to her, and makes sure she's comfortable for the night. Eleanor gets very agitated when he doesn't come." Derek learned that Marcus had been managing his mother's medical care, financial affairs, and daily needs for 3 years. He coordinated with doctors, nurses, and social workers. He had researched the best treatments and facilities. He had rearranged his entire life to provide the care his mother needed. "Marcus is the most devoted son I've ever seen," Dr. Walsh said. "He never complains about the time commitment or the emotional difficulty. He just does whatever needs to be done for his mother." By the time Derek left the nursing home, he understood the full scope of Marcus's life. Every evening, Marcus rushed from work to volunteer at the children's hospital from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Then he drove to the nursing home to spend time with his mother until she fell asleep around 9:30. Then he went home to prepare for the next day, probably getting to bed around 11 p.m. Derek spent Tuesday morning in his office staring at his computer screen without seeing anything. The Pinnacle Industries presentation was scheduled for Thursday, but Derek could barely think about work. His mind was consumed with guilt about Marcus and desperate plans to somehow fix the situation. The team was struggling without Marcus's expertise. The financial analysis section of the presentation had errors that nobody else could catch. The data visualizations were unclear and confusing. Derek was starting to realize that losing Marcus might cost them the Pinnacle contract, which would make his situation with upper management even worse. At 11:30 a.m., Derek made a decision that he should have made days earlier. He called Sarah from HR and asked her to come to his office immediately. "I need to talk to you about Marcus Thompson," Derek said as soon as Sarah sat down. Sarah looked nervous. She had been expecting this conversation since the day Derek fired Marcus. "What about Marcus?" "I think I made a mistake," Derek admitted. "I've learned some things about Marcus's personal situation that change everything." Derek told Sarah about the phone calls from the hospital and nursing home. He explained about Marcus's volunteer work with sick children and his caregiving responsibilities for his mother with dementia. Sarah listened with growing amazement and horror. "Derek, this is terrible," Sarah said when he finished. "You fired someone for having too much integrity and compassion. Do you realize the legal problems this could create for the company?" Derek had been so focused on his guilt that he had not considered the legal implications. "What kind of legal problems?" "Wrongful termination for starters," Sarah explained. "You fired Marcus without proper documentation or progressive discipline. You humiliated him publicly without cause. If he has a good lawyer, he could sue the company for significant damages. Derek felt sick. He had not only hurt Marcus personally, but he had also put Dataflow Solutions at legal risk. We need to contact Marcus immediately, Sarah continued. We need to offer him his job back with full back pay and a formal apology. We might also need to offer additional compensation for the emotional distress you caused. I've been trying to find him, Derek said. He's not answering his phone or his door. I think he might be avoiding contact with anyone from the company. Sarah thought for a moment. Let me try reaching out through HR channels. Sometimes people are more willing to talk to HR than to their former supervisor. Derek agreed, but he was not optimistic. Why would Marcus want to come back to work for someone who had treated him so badly? That afternoon, Derek received another devastating phone call. This time it was from Patricia Wells, his supervisor. Derek, I need to see you in my office right away, Patricia said. Her voice was cold and professional. When Derek arrived at Patricia's office, he found her sitting with the company's legal counsel and the VP of Human Resources. Derek realized that news of Marcus's firing had reached the highest levels of company management. Tell me about Marcus Thompson, Patricia said without any pleasantries. Derek tried to explain his decision in the best possible light, but the story sounded worse every time he told it. He had fired an excellent employee for leaving work on time. He had done it publicly and without proper procedures. And now they had learned that Marcus was leaving work to help sick children and care for his elderly mother. This is a public relations nightmare, said the legal counsel. If this story gets out to the media, it will destroy the company's reputation. Heartless boss fires man for helping sick children. Can you imagine that headline? Patricia looked disgusted. Derek, I'm disappointed beyond words. Marcus Thompson was one of our best employees, and you destroyed his life because of your own insecurities and prejudices. Derek tried to defend himself, but there was no defense for his actions. Every detail made him look worse. We need to fix this situation immediately, Patricia continued. I want you to find Marcus and offer him whatever it takes to come back. Promotion, raise, public apology, whatever he wants. Derek nodded, but he was starting to realize that Marcus might not want anything from Dataflow Solutions. Some damage could not be repaired with money or apologies. Meanwhile, Sarah from HR was having her own problems trying to contact Marcus. She had called his home number multiple times and sent emails to his personal account. She had even tried reaching out through professional networking sites. But Marcus was not responding to any attempts at communication. On Wednesday, Sarah decided to visit Marcus's apartment complex in person. She brought a formal letter offering Marcus his job back with a significant pay increase and promotion to Senior Data Analytics Manager. When Sarah knocked on Marcus's door, she was surprised when it opened. Marcus stood in the doorway looking tired and older than she remembered. He was wearing casual clothes and had not shaved in several days. Hello, Sarah, Marcus said quietly. I was wondering when someone from the company would show up. Marcus, thank you for seeing me, Sarah said. I have a letter from the company with an important offer. Marcus invited Sarah into his small but neat apartment. She noticed that he had been doing job searching. There were printed resumes on the table and job listing websites open on his laptop. Marcus, I need to start by apologizing, Sarah said. What Derek did to you was completely wrong. The company recognizes that you were treated unfairly. Marcus nodded but did not say anything. Sarah could see that he was still hurt and angry about his public humiliation. We want to offer you your job back, Sarah continued. Not just your old position, but a promotion to senior manager with a 20% pay increase. We'll also provide full back pay for the time you've been away. Marcus listened politely, but his expression did not change. That's very generous, he said finally. There's more, Sarah added. Derek has been reprimanded and we're implementing new policies to prevent this kind of situation in the future. We want to make sure you feel comfortable and respected if you decide to return. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Sarah could see him thinking carefully about the offer. Sarah, I appreciate everything you're saying, Marcus said finally. But I don't think I can come back to Dataflow Solutions. Sarah felt her heart sink. Can I ask why? Is there something else we could offer? Marcus looked out the window of his apartment. "It's not about money or position," he said. "It's about trust and respect. Derek humiliated me in front of my colleagues. He questioned my character and my commitment without knowing anything about my life." Marcus turned back to Sarah. "Even if Derek is gone tomorrow, I'll always be the person who was publicly fired for helping sick children. I'll always be the employee who had to be rescued by HR and upper management." Sarah understood, but she had to try one more time. "Marcus, people make mistakes. Derek made a terrible mistake, but that doesn't mean the whole company is bad. Your colleagues respect you. They know Derek was wrong." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but I've already accepted another position." Sarah felt the last hope disappearing. "Can I ask where?" "Techno Data Solutions offered me a senior analytics director position," Marcus explained. "They knew about my volunteer work and my caregiving responsibilities before they made the offer. They told me that my personal commitments show the kind of character they want in their leadership team." Sarah realized that Dataflow Solutions had lost Marcus forever. Techno Data was their biggest competitor, and Marcus was taking valuable expertise with him. "They're also allowing me to continue my volunteer work at the hospital," Marcus added, "and they're making a corporate donation to St. Mary's Children's Hospital in my name." Sarah felt ashamed of how differently the two companies had treated Marcus. Techno Data had celebrated the same qualities that Derek had punished. "I start my new job on Monday," Marcus said. "I'm grateful for your offer, Sarah, but I've already moved on." When Sarah returned to Dataflow Solutions, she had to deliver the bad news to Patricia Wells and Derek. Marcus was not coming back. They had lost one of their best employees to their biggest competitor. The Pinnacle Industries presentation was a disaster. Without Marcus's expertise, the financial analysis was full of errors. The data visualizations were confusing and unprofessional. Pinnacle decided to work with a different company, Techno Data Solutions. Derek learned later that Marcus had been the lead analyst on Techno Data's winning proposal. Marcus's work had cost Dataflow Solutions their biggest potential contract of the year. Within 2 months, Derek was demoted from department head to regular analyst. Patricia Wells explained that his poor judgment and unprofessional behavior had cost the company too much money and reputation. The story of Marcus's firing spread throughout the industry. Derek became known as the manager who fired an employee for volunteering at a children's hospital. Future employers questioned Derek's judgment and leadership abilities. Marcus, meanwhile, thrived at Techno Data Solutions. His new company celebrated his volunteer work in their newsletter and encouraged other employees to get involved in community service. Marcus was promoted again within 6 months and became one of the company's most respected leaders. At St. Mary's Children's Hospital, Marcus continued his volunteer work. The children were thrilled to have Mr. Marcus back, and he started a new program to help teenage patients prepare for college entrance exams.